I settled into the last free chair in the med room at St. Bonaventure Free Clinic, my feet throbbing inside shoes that had seen 400 miles of tile floor, and I remember thinking that whoever invented the phrase "pharmacist's hours" had never actually worked them. My name is Renata Solis, and I run the pharmacy counter at the Free Clinic on Delancey, 3 blocks from the bus terminal in a part of Tulsa where people call you by your first name because they've known you since you were counting out their grandmother's blood pressure pills. It's not glamorous. Most nights I close up smelling like hand sanitizer and burnt coffee, and I go home to an apartment with one plant I keep forgetting to water. The controlling question of my life that autumn was simple, though I wouldn't have put it in words back then. Was I willing to let someone see the tired, unglamorous, closing up alone version of me, or was I going to keep performing competence until I drove every possible person away? Enter Marcus Whitfield. He came in on a Tuesday holding a torn prescription slip and looking like he hadn't slept since a decade prior. "I need to fill this for my dad," he said. "He's stubborn and he thinks he doesn't need it, so if you could maybe act like you don't know he's stubborn, that would help." I laughed before I could stop myself. "I promise not to editorialize." "You say that now." I found out later he was a paramedic with County EMS, the kind of job where you learn to talk to frightened people in doorways, and I suppose that's why he knew exactly how to talk to me. Like I was a person he was curious about, not a counter with a name tag. He came back the next week, and the week after. Sometimes for his father's refills, sometimes, I began to suspect, for no medical reason at all. "You're here a lot for someone whose dad only needs a 30-day supply," I said one evening, sliding the white bag across the counter. "Guilty," he said. "I like this pharmacy. Good service. Excellent commentary." I said I wouldn't editorialize. "You lied. It's the best part." Here's the complication, the one that turned a nice flirtation into something that actually mattered. Marcus's father, Walter, was one of my regulars, a proud old machinist who'd rather choke down a fistful of aspirin than admit his heart needed more help than that. And one night, an ambulance call came into the clinic's radio chatter. Not unusual, we shared a scanner with the fire department 2 doors down, and it was Walter's address. Marcus's crew, but Marcus wasn't on shift. Someone else's partner had picked up the call. I didn't know any of this until Marcus showed up at closing, gray-faced, still in his uniform pants from a different job entirely, saying his father was stable. Thank God, but that he'd spent the drive to the hospital replaying every single week he'd let go by, arguing with his dad about pills instead of just sitting with him. "I keep thinking," he said, dropping into the chair across from my counter like his legs had given out, "that I'm good at showing up for strangers. I run into houses I've never seen before, and I know exactly what to say. And I couldn't say the right thing to my own father for 2 years. I didn't have a clever line for that. I just came around the counter, which I never do, and sat next to him on the little bench by the blood pressure machine and let the silence be enough for a minute. "You came here every week," I said finally, "not because your dad needed refills. You came because it was easier to almost say things to me than to actually say them to him." He looked at me sideways. "That's a little on the nose. I'm a pharmacist. Precision's the whole job." That got a real laugh out of him, cracked and relieved, and something shifted. The flirting fell away, and what was underneath it turned out to be sturdier than I expected. We sat there while the fluorescent lights hummed, and he told me about his mother's funeral, about how his father had gone quiet after that in a way that scared him more than any code he'd run on a stranger. And I told him about my own father, 3 states away, who I called on Sundays out of duty more than warmth, and how I was starting to wonder if that was its own kind of cowardice. Walter recovered. A scare, not a catastrophe, though it took a week of hospital visits and one very memorable afternoon where I brought Walter a get well card and he interrogated me for 20 minutes about my intentions toward his son with the shameless glee of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "He likes you," Walter told me, loud enough for Marcus to hear from the hallway. Took him 3 months to say so out loud, but I've got eyes. "Dad." "What?" "I'm old. I say what I see." Marcus turned the color of the clinic's exam gowns, and I decided, right there, that I liked being the reason for that particular shade of red. Things could have stayed easy after that, but they didn't, not right away. Because the next month brought the actual test of everything we'd almost said to each other. Marcus's department offered him a promotion, a field training officer role 2 counties over, better pay, better hours, the kind of opportunity you don't get twice. It also meant leaving Tulsa. He came to the counter to tell me, not as a customer this time, just as himself, no prescription in hand. I haven't said yes, he said. I wanted to ask you something first, and I'm aware that's maybe presumptuous, given we've mostly just been talking over a pharmacy counter for 4 months. Mostly, I agreed. Would it matter to you? If I left? I want to tell you I had a graceful answer ready. I didn't. What I had was months of watching this man choose honesty over comfort, choose his father over his pride, choose to keep coming back even when I gave him nothing but wisecracks and prescription labels. And I realized the real question wasn't whether I'd miss him. It was whether I was finally willing to be the kind of person who said so. It would matter, I said. I don't know what we do with that yet, but it would matter. He didn't take the job. I want to be honest and say I never asked him to turn it down, and I've wondered since whether that was fair of me to let happen, whether a person should ever be the reason someone else stays somewhere smaller than they could have gone. He says it wasn't really about me, that watching his father almost die alone taught him something about what better actually means, and that 2 counties over stopped looking like an upgrade once he priced it against Sunday dinners with Walter and slow Tuesday evenings at my counter. I believe him most days. On the days I don't, I ask him again, and he answers the same way, patient as ever, like a man who's used to talking people down from their worst fears in doorways at 3 a.m. We got married the following June in Walter's backyard under a maple tree that Marcus's mother had planted decades before. Walter gave a toast that ran 12 minutes too long and made everyone cry twice, once from laughing and once from something else entirely. I still work the counter at Delancey Street. I still close up some nights smelling like hand sanitizer, still come home tired down to my bones. But there's someone waiting now, someone who learned, the hard way, that showing up for the people you love takes the same steady hands as showing up for strangers, maybe steadier. I think about Walter's stubbornness sometimes, about how close pride came to costing him everything worth keeping, and I wonder how many of us are out there right now, rehearsing the thing we mean to say to someone, dressing it up as small talk, waiting for a scare to make us brave enough to just say it plainly. I don't have a tidy answer for that. I just know I got lucky enough to stop waiting in time.